I was, my identity, I grew up in Everett, my identity was I was a baseball player. And during the springtime, when I was 15, I got these unbelievable allergies and hay fever and stuff. And my parents sent me to Dr. Julian for a scratch test, which was administered by this certain nurse, Louise. So anyway, I'm 15 years old. I'd never, I'm not very worldly. And Louise comes out in a starch white nurse's uniform, hat. And Louise was like, I'd never seen anything like Louise in my life. And I'm sitting, there's this little table in the middle of the room with like a little, box in it with, like needles and stuff. And she says, and there's two seats. She says, sit at one of the seats. And I'll sit across from you. And she says, put your arms on the table and palms up. She sits on the other seat and starts probably as memorable a scratch test as any 15-year-old in the history of the planet ever had. Now, there was a certain, we'll call it incidental contact that I had always thought was accidental until I told Elle about it. And she's like, this wasn't that long ago. And I'll tell her, I go like, I said, I'm saying to myself, don't flinch. Maybe she won't notice. And my wife's like, she noticed, trust me. So anyway, that was Louise. And I found myself looking more forward to getting an allergy shot than actually playing baseball from that moment on. Whenever they told me I had to get 2 shots a week for 2 years, my feet didn't even hit the floor on the way home. I was like, awesome. Louise.
I told him to tell stories.
She was called beyond the wall. She was a view I never knew. She was a queen of them all you knew. She knew too. Louise, 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 if you please, you got me down on my knees. Louise, oh please, Louise, please. She was bright, light of white. She was aloof, but she was alright. She was a rising ray of hope from behind her stethoscope. Louise, 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 if you please, got me down on my knees. Louise, oh please, Louise, please. Outside the air smells like springtime. Mow is mowed, pollen filled the air. Filled my lungs, played ball in the sunshine. She scratched my itch and leaned into my mind. Louise, 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 if you please, you got me down on my knees. Louise, oh please, Louise, please. Louise, 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 if you please, got me down on my knees. Louise, oh please, Louise, please. Please, Louise, Louise, please. Please, Louise, Louise, please. Thank you. Ashley said, thank you. I didn't mean to, it just came out. So here it comes, kids. This is a song about a story my next door neighbor told me. And I had this, it's called a business situation that sort of needed to go away. and he says, I think it's time for a call to Marvin the Torch. I'm like, Marvin the Torch? And he goes, he can make brick burn. So he tells me this story about this arsonist from Chelsea, Mass. Home of the great Chelsea fire in 1971, by the way, which my father and I drove down to in his Impala, and then we couldn't find his car in the middle of like Armageddon. So I hear this, naturally I hear a story about an arsonist from Chelsea. I mean, it resonated with me, to say the least. But Marvin's signature was like how far he could blow the roof off any establishment that he executed on, we'll say. And he had a three-man team. It was himself, the other guy who ran around and collected all the gas cans so that couldn't leave anything behind. And then the third guy, who was his blanket man. He had a wet blanket in case one of them caught fire. So he gets run out of Chelsea, goes down to Florida someplace, hooks up with some guy that runs a restaurant. They become friends. Restaurant goes on. The guy hires. Actually, no, he doesn't hire Marvin. Asks him a favor, which Marvin does. And he does his signature, blows the roof to the moon. And somebody connects the dots to Somerville, and they catch him. And he just lamented that he went down on a favor. I mean, he couldn't believe it. He's like the most famous arsonist there is. He goes down on a favor. And Jimmy Breslin wrote the story, and right at the end, I think it might have been Jimmy Breslin that interviewed him. And Marvin's sitting there, and he goes about the fact that he went down on a favor. He goes, favors are for pyromaniacs. Arsony is for professionals. So this is Marvin the Torch. In my mind, I always picture myself pitching this one to Bobby Darin. So, so much for the big intro. Well, there ain't no archway over Fair Beach Parkway. It's just a dirty road downtown, pulling into Chelsea. Hear some poor fool say, may the good Lord help me, must have lost my way. Marvin the Torch stashed his shit underneath his porch. He was always ready to go with his blanket man in tow. If your collar's getting tight, Marvin steps into the night. He'll be the next to learn he can make brick burn. Impalas in the nighttime, knocked out on the street. The air smelled like smoke, blowing in the heat. Said it must have been a few. Bank called him a liar. Now they're packing him in the pews after the great Chelsea fire. Marvin the Torch stashed shit underneath his porch. He was always ready to go with his blanket man in tow. If your collar's getting tight, Marvin steps into the night, and you'll be the next to learn he can make brick burn. Uncle Stephen's almost even, but he needs to know for sure. He's trying to come up with a reason to get Marvin to one more. Maybe ask him a favor, but Marvin turned up his nose. Favors are for pyros, we gotta pay the pros. stashed shit underneath his porch. He was always ready to go, with his blanket man in tow. If your collar's getting tight, Marvin steps into the night. You'll be the next to learn he can make brick burn. Marvin the torch, stashed shit underneath his porch. He was always ready to go, with his blanket man in tow. If your collar's getting tight, Marvin steps into the night, and you'll be the next to learn he can make brick burn. Be the next to learn he can make brick burn. You'll be the next to learn he can make brick burn. Yeah, yeah. Marvin Lowes who lived to make it burn. Thank you. It really was my father's car, the Impala. My first two cars were Impalas, and Elle and I bought the last model Impala they ever sold a couple of years ago. So I'm a proud owner again of an Impala. Whoa. Serious. I'm actually in tune. I was gonna finish with a different one, John Prine song, but I'm gonna do a song that John Prine actually covered by a guy named Blaze Foley. A lot of folks know the story, but this guy Blaze Foley was a character. Lucinda Williams wrote "Drunken Angel" about him. He just shows up in a lot of stories. There's a story that Townes Van Zandt dug him up to get a pool pawn ticket for his guitar he borrowed before he unfortunately passed. But a lot of stories about old Blaze. But this is a song he wrote, and it was so good that John Prine went to find him and covered the song. Lee, how you doing, bud? There's a guy that does this, he kills his song, so. Now I'm all nervous. Going down Greyhound Station, buy a ticket to ride. Find me a lady, 2 or 3 kids, sit down by her side. Ride till the sun's up and down mound about 2 or 3 times. Smoking cigarettes, a last seat. Hide my sorrow, people that I meet, and get along with it all. Down where people say y'all, sing a song with a friend, change the shape that I'm in, and get back in the game.